Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, the Two Opinionated podcast could really use your help. And it's easy, it's free. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, imdb.com, named us a top 100 podcast. We came in at number 82. That's a big deal because there's 15 million podcasts and growing. So to be named to anybody's top 100 list, pretty big deal for us. And the way you can help is to go to imdb.com, look up the Two Opinionated podcast, and that's it. Just bringing our page up. That traffic really helps us out. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. All we ask is that you subscribe. It's also free, but that really helps us to attract these amazing guests that we keep bringing on the program. And that's it. Two easy ways for you to support us, and we would really appreciate the help. Now let's get to that interview. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Two Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I've got actor Kurt Yu with me. So welcome, Kurt.
Hey, Michael, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
You know, I'm a fan of yours and didn't really realize it until I really started looking at all of the nerdy stuff that you have done over the course of your career. And I was like, yeah, I've seen him in all of that. I even remember seeing you in Mr. Mercedes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you had, and what was the other one I wanted to Preacher was another
yeah,
comic
Preacher,
book.
that was a fun one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, you've been doing this for a little while, but you got a late start. So let's talk about that a little bit. Talk about kind of what got you into acting and why you decided almost on a whim to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all relative, right? I think from the outside looking in, we do tend to see a lot of times, child actors, teenage actors, actors in their early 20s, getting into it. And so anybody getting into it after that, we kind of see as people getting started like later in their careers or in life. But being in the industry now, I've met so many people like me. So I'm not rare in
You're
that
not a
sense.
unicorn, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, exactly. I've met so many people that have come to this career in many different ways. Some similar to me, having a corporate career and then transitioning into it. Others maybe that were acting earlier on when they were young, when they were kids, or even in their 20s, and then like for whatever reason, left the industry, had a different life or raised kids or whatever it was, and then decided to come back. And there's so many stories like that.
I mean,
So
some would say having a career is the way to go because that's
yeah,
usually, actors starting out, they struggle so much just to
yeah,
make ends meet. Maybe it's
yeah.
better to have the career first.
Maybe it is. There's no right or wrong. This is what I tell people all the time. Like all these, I coach a lot of actors, or at least a lot of new actors that are trying to get into the industry, and they're asking me like, what should I do? And I'm like, whatever feels right for you,
Yeah.
but there's not necessarily, you don't have to even follow exactly what I did. Like I can tell you what worked for me, in my career, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to follow those exact steps. So for me personally, yeah, to your point, I started, I mean, I didn't do any sort of acting when I was in school, and my whole high school through college was very much in the math and sciences, and I got my college degree in computer science. I worked in the software world for almost 10 years as a software developer, working doing the cubicle life in the corporate world. And that's really what sparked the idea of not really looking for acting, but because I was working that boring corporate
Right.
job, I started looking for more interesting things to do after work, just as an additional thing, a release or whatever it is. And I found multiple things. I was taking a martial arts class. I was doing this and that.
Yeah.
And then one day I found me and a friend of mine we were walking down the street and we just happened to pass by this acting studio. It was a storefront studio, so it had, their name, and we're like, oh, maybe this is something that we could do. Because my buddy worked a corporate job too. He worked at a bank, so we both had boring jobs. So we're like, all right, let's try this acting class. And without any delusions of we're going to change
Right.
careers. It was just looking for something fun, and that's really what it was for the first. I would say it was about a year. I took classes at that acting school. I was living in Cleveland, Ohio at the time, so I was taking classes at that acting school in Cleveland for a whole year. Without even trying to audition for anything. I was just taking the classes for fun because they were really enjoyable. And then it was a year into those classes, one of my classmates asked me, "Hey, you seem to be doing well, and you like the classes. Do you want to talk to my agent? Do you want to, see if you can
Yeah.
audition for things and maybe book some like local things?" Now in Cleveland, they weren't making any big movies or
Right.
shows or anything like that, but there's the local stuff, local commercials or local corporate training videos and things like that you could still audition for and get paid to do. So that's how I got started.
Yeah, I think that's a great story. I was going to ask you if there was a Cleveland connection. I saw your Wild Thing shirt, so I was
Oh yeah.
wondering if that.
Yeah, I grew up most of my life in Cleveland. It was from sixth grade through high school, and then went to college in Michigan, and then went back to Cleveland. So right in that area
Yeah,
for
Cleveland's a great town.
20 plus years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty good. I totally get the needing to find something a little more exciting. My wife works compliance with Live Nation, has for 25 years,
Sure.
and she loves her job, but not the most exciting most of the
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
so she has always looked for, volunteer things. She started
Yeah.
painting, she
Right.
does pottery, she's involved in all of this stuff outside of work just to give her that kind of excitement, and to where she's not just married to the
Yeah.
job. So I
Yeah.
totally get that, and I think a lot of people try to find that stuff, but it rarely leads to a different career.
You're right. It is. I mean, and that's where I recognize that my story may be a little bit more unique, because it has grown to what it is now, and I don't take it for granted. It's really still kind of shocking to me, where how far this has come, and even I'm not some big famous celebrity, but I've certainly reached a point that I would never have expected, when I first started taking the classes. I mean, I'm far beyond a point that I wouldn't have expected. I mean, just to be in, a Marvel movie when I took my first acting class, the day I walked into that acting class in Cleveland was in uh, late April, early May of 2008, and that was the same week that the first Robert Downey Jr. Iron
Right,
Man
Iron
came out.
Man. Yep.
So, it was like that Iron Man kind of sparked the MCU as we know it today, and there was no part of my brain when I was taking those acting classes then, and then going to the movie theater and seeing Iron Man and thinking, oh, I could be, that equates. It
Yeah,
did
it
not
didn't
equate.
connect.
No, not at all. Not in my mind. It didn't connect at all.
Were you a like a comic book fan growing up?
To the extent of, I would say the most young boys, but not like a collector, right?
Right.
So I watched all the Superman movies, the Batman movies. I watched or I read some comic books that, some of my friends had comic books, I would read those, but I wasn't the one that like bought a bunch of them. I had some, but not like a collector where I had them all in boxes and things like
Right.
that.
Well, and I loved your team when they sent over your packet. They called you a Marvel multiverser, and I thought that was
Yeah.
hilarious because you did the Gifted, so you've done the kind of the Fox TV side, and
Yeah.
then you did Venom, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which would be your Sony side. So you've hit all the universes.
Yeah, it was actually my friend Tom. So when I was back in Ohio, um, I met my friend Tom Tennant, who also worked a corporate job.
Yeah.
We were all friends that worked corporate jobs, and we met by doing a 48-hour film competition. And it's this competition that goes to different cities all over the world, and it's a really fun, low stakes, make a film in 48 hours. Here are the things that you have to include in your film so that you couldn't have made it beforehand. So they give you all these things, and you have your start time is Friday evening, and you have until Sunday evening to turn in a completed short film. So I met Tom doing one of those, and so we became friends. And then he was a blogger, so he writes a blog called the Midwest Movie Maker.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about indie films, but also bigger productions. And he pointed it out one time. This was after I moved down to Atlanta. He sent me an email. Hey, see, did you know that you're probably the only person or one of like very, very few people that have spanned all three universes? And I'm like, I had no idea. So he wrote that
Oh,
article, and now that's been shared all over the place. So I got to credit him for that, finding that little nugget.
yeah, I think that's pretty great. That's
Yeah.
pretty great.
Yeah.
I always play this game with the family where I go around and I ask them, this is who I'm interviewing. What have you seen them in? Well, we just so happened that when Black Widow came out, we
Yep.
had the whole family to the studio and we watched it together in the studio. So like 90% of them, that's what they said. They're like, "Oh, Black Widow."
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I was like, "That's unfair. I gave you a cheat on that one."
Right. No, Black Widow was really fun. That was I think that was one of the first times that I got flown anywhere by a production to go film something, and it happened to be out of the country. So we filmed that over in London, and the amazing thing about that was they flew six of us from Atlanta to London to do these scenes, and I think they only needed us on set for 3 days, and they had us there for about 2.5 weeks. So we had a lot of downtime. It was just a nice paid vacation to go and just explore, and it just kind of
I
goes
mean,
to
that
show you
sounds
how.
like a great role to me.
Yeah, it's an incredible role, and it also goes to show how much money Disney has
Right.
that they can spend all that and still make money on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of crazy
Yeah,
when you think about it, because some of these productions, the amount of money that's thrown at them is insane. I mean, it's crazy. And then you compare them to independent films that are on
yeah,
like a shoestring budget, and a
yeah.
lot of times the actual story not that different.
Nope.
It's all special effects and stars.
It's the stars. It's being able to promote it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, they got the marketing budget to promote it and get people to be interested and watch it. Whereas these independent films, they could be the best things ever,
yeah,
but if they don't got the budget to promote it, nobody's gonna know.
yeah. I wanted to ask you about Shots Fired because I
Yeah.
like that story. You got to work
Yeah.
with Helen Hunt and who was the other one?
And Richard Dreyfuss,
Oh,
and
Richard
both of them,
Dreyfuss, of course.
both of them Oscar winners. Yeah.
But that was like your first TV role.
That's my first TV role, and it was a wild ride to get there too, because I had just signed with my agent in Atlanta. I was getting ready to move to Atlanta, but I hadn't moved yet, so I was still in Cleveland. They gave me this audition that I could tape from home, so I sent in that tape, and then it was weeks later. I had forgotten about it. I thought, it was over. They'd hired somebody else, and now knowing what I know now, most likely they did, because I was contacted very last minute. The night
Right.
before, they contacted me and they said,
Somebody
"Hey,
dropped out.
can you be in North Carolina tonight to shoot tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be there," without knowing how I'm going to get there. So, long story short, I jumped through all these hoops, and my agent legally was not allowed to tell me that I was booked, because she hadn't gotten word down the line that I was booked. But it all sounded like they were going to hire me, because who else are they going to get
Yeah,
last minute?
right.
They've already gone through and gotten me to fill out some paperwork or whatever it was. I can't remember everything that happened, but like I talked to so many people, and then got to go through all these approvals. come like it was like the last plane from Cleveland to Charlotte was, you know, that evening. I was like, I got to get on this plane. And I still didn't have final word yet. So I ended up getting on the plane, turned off my phone without final approval until I landed, turned on my phone, got the voicemail from my agent that you got the part. I was like, well, thank God I'm already here, you know.
Well, you
But
go to the beach, maybe.
I could have, yeah, yeah. That would have been, I guess that would have been the other thing that I could have done. But you know, within all that giant whirlwind of trying to get on, you know, just finding out if I was going to get the role or not, I didn't even know who was on the show. It was, you know, because it's a new show. If it
Right.
was an existing one, you would know, but it's a new show, so I didn't find out till I got the call sheet after I got to my hotel that night. So it was like 11 p.m. I look at the call sheet and it's those two. And it's just the three of us in the scene. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm already nervous that it's my
Well,
first
yeah.
TV show. And now I'm just like, you know, all of those negative thoughts are going through my head. Like they're gonna fire me. I'm gonna be so bad compared to these two Oscar winners and all of these things. And on top of that, um, because I wasn't completely or hired yet by the production. They weren't allowed to send me the script. So I didn't get the script until like 9 p.m. that night after I got off the plane. And then I get to my hotel and I read the script and I'm like, oh, great. The lines are totally different from my audition. Now I got to memorize these new lines the night before. And I'm the only other person speaking other than those two. So like so many nerves going into it. But
Did the
and then
math and the science help with the memorization?
not really. I mean, now I was a lawyer role, so I had to say all this lawyer jargon that I wasn't familiar with either, you know, and I was I do think that it helped. Well, first of all, when you watch the scene, there's a part of the scene where I actually shift in my seat. And it looks very normal. On camera, it looks like just a guy shifting in a seat
Right.
while talking. But I know from being there that the reason I shifted was just nervous energy. I just had to get because I couldn't sit still. But luckily on camera, it reads very natural. Uh, but I was very lucky that when they were filming the scene, that both Helen Hunt and Richard Dreyfuss at some point in their parts, they flubbed a line, both of them. Um,
Well, that probably made you feel great,
oh,
actually.
it made me feel on top of the world at that point. I was like, oh, the pressure just went so far down
Yeah.
because I can't imagine if they each nailed their parts in one take and they flipped the camera around to me
Right.
and all that pressure is now on. But for both of them to have flubbed their lines, and I'd like to think they did it because they knew I was nervous, but who knows?
They're helping you out.
Yeah, yeah, they were helping me out.
I had
But that
a
was it was a great experience. I mean, they were both wonderful. They were both lovely. I couldn't really take that in at the time,
well,
but
like
they
both
were
of
super
them
nice.
have been acting for decades.
Oh, for so long. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'd have been a wreck with
yeah.
the only acting that I have ever done is very minor. I had a good friend that was doing a audio drama, and she needed somebody to play play a little role, a little part in it, and she asked me, and I was like, well, okay. I said I can do it. It wasn't anything big, maybe a paragraph, something like that. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And we're doing it by Zoom. So she's like, I'll just be on Zoom. I'll direct you, that way. It's just audio.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be opposite an older man. She said, I'm still looking for my older gentleman. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm assuming it's just somebody like me. So I
Yeah.
get on there and she's like, I found our guy. He'll be on here in a minute. So he gets on there. It's Ed.
Oh, you're on Zoom together?
We're on Zoom together and it's Ed
Okay.
Asner. So I went from being like super nervous just because, you know,
Yeah.
I didn't act.
Yeah, yeah.
Then he shows up and I'm like, oh, this isn't going to go good at all. But
I
he
feel it.
was so
I feel the
good.
pain.
Like he
Yeah.
was so natural, so
Yeah.
believable. It
Yeah.
actually helped me.
Good.
It
Yeah.
just kind of relaxed me because he was so good. So I
How
felt
long ago was
like
that?
I was terrible, but he was so good the scene went fine.
Yeah.
But
How
yeah,
long ago was that?
that's it was right before he passed. It was one of the last things he did.
Wow. Wow.
So it's been a few years back, but yeah, I think he had just so happened he had come through her town, did doing a one man show, and she met him that way, and there you go. I mean, she's an actress and was a casting director, so the whole cast was mostly actors, but she had a
Yeah.
few of her friends in there. And yeah, I was like, well, maybe next time give me the heads up. But she's like, well, if I gave you the heads up, you wouldn't have showed up.
Maybe not, right? I got a chance to work with Ed Asner on an episode of MacGyver,
Oh yeah,
where I was an airplane pilot, and he was him and I forget the actress's name, but they played a wealthy couple that had a private jet, and they were my passengers on the private jet, and then the MacGyver characters come in and they commandeer the plane because they're trying to chase somebody. I can't remember exactly the story, but I do remember Ed Asner being a very good actor in his very advanced age that he was at that point, but still incredibly good. But then also just a wonderful human being to be around on set. He was joking around with everybody,
yeah, he's got a really good demeanor. I mean, he kind of,
yeah,
he does. He's got that joking where he'll kind of give you a hard time, but it's in a positive way,
right.
if that
Yeah,
makes sense. He really
yeah,
liked my wife. Like on it, like they had a little back and forth when we were just talking on camera, and then a few
yeah,
weeks later, I interviewed him on the podcast, and that was his first question. He's like, "Well, where's Emily?" And I was
yeah,
like, "Well, it's my podcast, so she's working." So
right.
then he sang her a song that the name of the song's Emily, and he
Oh,
sang
wow.
the song on the podcast. And I was like, well,
Yeah,
that was pretty great.
yeah. I posted something. I remember I posted something on social media after I worked with it, and I said, I got to work with a really great actor today. I said, between the two of us, we have seven Emmy Awards.
It's crazy. I mean, he's been
Yeah,
doing that since like the 50s.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, what a career. Yeah, it was pretty great.
yeah.
So you didn't just learn to act and become an actor, you also help coach other actors. You've got your own YouTube channel. So talk a little bit about that. What brought you to the point where you said, well, maybe I can pass on some of what I've learned to other people?
I mean, yeah, well, it's exactly like what you said. I mean, I think a lot of times when people make any sort of like educational advice YouTube or blog or whatever, it usually comes from a place of like, well, I wish I had this,
Right.
when I started, right? And I was one of those guys for sure. At some point, I found myself Googling or YouTubing uh, advice about acting and advice about the career and that type of stuff. And I found some people, and actually, well, one of the people I found is what kind of gave me the idea to make the channel. There was a woman by the name of Amy Jo Berman, who has a very successful YouTube channel, even back then. And she was really the only one that I could find that had any sort of YouTube presence. And her credibility was that she was a casting director for HBO.
Oh,
So she had the credibility and was giving out great information on her channel. The one thing is that it was very Hollywood centric, through no fault of hers, because that's what she knows, and
she
that's
knew.
her,
Yeah.
yeah, that's her industry, and it's all about Hollywood auditioning for movies and TV shows and these big projects like Game of Thrones and the things that she cast. And I I remember thinking, well, I know that there's information that would also help people that are in my position in Cleveland or places like Cleveland, right? Like in West Virginia
Yeah.
or in Kansas or wherever. Uh, I'm sure there are a lot of people like me who at some point thought that everything that we know is any opportunity for actors to make money is only in Hollywood. And I was quickly, taught otherwise after I started that acting class. But had I not been there, like I would not have known. And so I started a YouTube channel, and at the time it was called Small Market Actor, and it was just about that small niche, and trying to inform people about the opportunities that you could get while living in a small market, while not living in Hollywood or on Broadway or anything like that. And I made a few videos here and there, but I didn't really invest a lot of time into my YouTube channel until the pandemic. And so that was when, we all had all this extra time, and I decided to spend my time like pumping out YouTube
That's a
videos.
great time to do it.
It was, yeah. It was a kind of a perfect storm for me because uh, my career had also grown at that point. I had been at Atlanta for a few years. I had more film and television credits, so it made sense at that point to rebrand my channel from Small Market Actor. It's now Acting Career Center. I could talk more about the film and television side of things as well.
Right.
But in addition to also explaining how I started in a smaller market and how people, in those places can do it too. So I could kind of talk about both sides of it. And because I had the time, I was making multiple videos a week. And like I said, it was a perfect storm because also everybody else was at home consuming content, right? So my channel kind of like grew quite a bit during that time. And so it's been really great. It's been really rewarding to see the comments and to hear from people send me messages and stuff like that to say that, hey, I decided to enroll in my first acting class, or I
Oh,
got
that
my
has
first
to feel
audition, or
good.
I got my first audition, or booked my first role, or all. I hear a lot of those types of things. So it's really rewarding to hear those things when, sometimes when you make those, YouTube channels or even podcasts, right, where you
Yeah.
just send it out in the ether and you're like, oh, I hope people listen, right? So
Wait,
so
that the 2020 was the year for us.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
we were just me and my son basically talking to each other, and
Yeah,
then 2020 came and everybody was home. I don't think we got a no when we asked to speak to somebody because nobody
yeah,
had anything to do. And that's when
right.
our podcast took off. And I was like, okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd have probably given it up if we could have skipped the whole pandemic. But
Right.
since we couldn't,
Right.
not too bad an outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely worked out.
Do you have since you're doing a little bit of the coaching side, any thoughts on moving behind the camera at some point?
Yeah, maybe at some point. I've dabbled with it in terms of like I have camera gear because I've done a lot of photography in the past,
Yeah,
and I transitioned to shooting a little bit of video because I shoot video for my YouTube channel, obviously. So
yeah,
I'll do some of that, and I've played with filming some little scenes. I haven't even gone as far as to even make a whole short film yet. So yeah, I've done some behind the camera work, but just goofing around and messing around with some of my friends. I think maybe at some point down the line, maybe I'll do a short film and kind of
see
move
how it
on from
goes.
there. But yeah. But it does seem like that's the progression of a lot of people. I think and it's something that I tell actors too, that there's so much that's out of our control as actors that if you can find ways to take back some control of your career, then pursue that. So whether it's writing, you could write your own material.
Yeah,
Whether it's filming, you could make your own short films. And or just working as a crew member behind the camera to give yourself all the opportunities available in this industry rather than just a one specific, acting role. Because it is when you're an actor, you're just at the mercy of so many other people
right.
and all of their opinions. And there's, like I said earlier, there's no right or wrong. So you're just hoping. To if you can find ways to take back some control, it can definitely be helpful for your career. And one of the ways that a lot of people do it is to film their own things, film their own content.
Yeah, a lot of actors.
Yeah.
do that. And sometimes it leads to something. You never know. If nothing else, it gives you the experience of doing it. So maybe you're a little more comfortable, when you're acting.
Oh, 100%. You're right. You're absolutely right. That's a big part of it, to know the other side of it,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you're on set, you feel it could feel a lot more comfortable, or
Right.
even
Yeah,
in the
that's right.
audition room. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's something. I know a lot of people write their own stuff, but I think
Yeah.
it's just from talking with actors a lot of them moving to the short film type of side of it
Yeah.
just to get that experience and kind of understanding a little bit.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Plus, you make connections doing that.
100%.
Yeah,
I mean, what I tell people all the time, I think 2018, I think it was. It's a couple years after moving to Atlanta. I was asked by a director that I had worked with on this, on a pro bono, like uh, get out the vote type of commercial shoot. I did something like that, and then um, having no other experience working with this guy, he said, "Hey, I'm doing this feature film, low budget, shoestring budget feature film, but it's an action movie, and I'd be really interested in you playing a part in it. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's talk about it." He sent me the script. I thought it was really cool. We decided to make it, and I was making barely any money off of it, but it was an opportunity to kind of do something different and have a little bit more control over things, and like you said, networking with all these people that I never worked with before. And through doing that, it got me the guy who's my manager right now in LA, because he saw the trailer to that movie.
really.
Yeah, and he reached out to me, which is very different than most people. The way most people get their reps is that we're sending out all these emails and trying to get meetings and stuff like that. But he reached out to me and he said, I'd seen some of your roles in, like, the Black Widow or whatever, like these, but they're all bit parts. They're all these small, roles where you have maybe one scene, you say 3 or 4 lines, and then you're done. And then he saw this one where I had a much bigger role, and he said it showed off a lot more of your range. So I was more interested in working with you. So you never know, what can happen with some of these things that may feel like smaller projects, right? But they could open up a lot of doors that you may not anticipate.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. But we love you on Will Trent. You keep
No,
popping up
thank you.
on there. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and and you've had a kind of the not really luck, but good fortune, I guess, to be on several shows recurring kind of at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah. And very lucky that they didn't overlap in their filming, and then I have to drop out of one of them, because that's very common. That'll happen. And sometimes it's those things that happen in the career where you don't get hired for anything in so long, and then all of a sudden 3 things want to hire you at the same time, and then you got to choose. But yeah, I've been fortunate in that respect, and like I said earlier, there's so much of it that's out of our control. With Will Trent, it's one of those things where I similar to Shots Fired. It was a new show when I auditioned for it, didn't know anything about it, and you know happy to have gotten the chance to book that role, but then it turns into a recurring character. That was nothing that I could control. And then the show got picked up for a second season. Again, nothing that I could control. Like, a lot of the success of myself on Will Trent was just due to the success of the show, right? Due to the success of other
Well,
parts of it that,
that's the way it happens for most people most of the
yeah,
time.
exactly. Exactly. So, and we're excited that it got picked up for a third season now. It's supposed to start production later this summer. So, fingers crossed that it goes on for much longer than that even. So, we'll see. I've been really that's Will Trent is a really great cast and crew, great group of people to work with.
Yeah.
It's just a fun day anytime I get to go onto that set.
Seems like as a fan, you want there to be chemistry among the actors that you're
Yeah,
watching on TV. It doesn't always happen, but it seems
right.
like Will Trent, there's good chemistry on that show.
Yeah, we all hear the stories, right? And I think it's always like uh it the stories that get the clicks are when the actors don't have chemistry. Like so and so hated so and so on set, and then we want to read the gossip about,
Right.
which celebrity did not like which other celebrity. But I feel like for the most part, if that happened all the time, we'd certainly hear a lot more of it
That's right.
because I mean, look how many movies and shows are being made. It's impossible to count even. So I think most of the time, everybody's gets along perfectly fine, and and on the great projects, I mean, they're getting along better than just fine. They are working really well together. And sometimes it's because those uh, cast and crew members have worked together before.
Right.
We see it all the time of directors and actors or writers and actors that work
Right.
together multiple times together, right? Because they work well together. And I know that, and then for shows, they seem to kind of find their footing. Once everybody gets a sense of each other, then everybody gets a sense of how each other works and gets a sense of each
Right.
other's personalities. After like maybe one season or a season and a half, then you see a show really find their footing
That is
because
true.
not just because of the writing, although that is part of it, because then the writers also get to know the actors, and get to know what their strengths and weaknesses are and how to really write to their strengths. But then the actors also get to know of how to really work well together too. But I'll say for Will Trent, it's one of those shows that just from day one, from the first time that I got to walk on that set, all of the lead actors, starting with Ramon, who plays Will Trent, all the lead actors are super welcoming. It make you feel a part of the show, even though you're there for one day and one scene. And I think part of it is that those guys know what it's like. They've been doing it for so
That's
long,
right.
but a lot of them remember what it was like to be the guy showing up on set for one day, not knowing anybody, and
It's
needing
hard.
to have and being asked to perform. And it is hard, yeah, and it makes it easier when the other actors and the crew members kind of go out of their way to help you feel at home on that set, where you can kind of feel like the new kid at school sometimes. And they and that cast and crew are definitely great about that. And I saw it when I first arrived, and now that I've been on the show multiple times, I already feel that way, right? But now I see other actors that it's their first day, and I see them doing the same thing. I see that
That's great.
and try to be a part of it as well, because those people definitely take the lead on that and set a great example.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got Cobra Kai's wrapping up. I think it comes out any day now, right? The last
Today,
segment. Yeah,
today,
today. Okay. Yeah,
today's
I knew
the
it was soon.
Yeah, they're doing three parts. They're going all out. So it's a three-part final season. So I'm gonna start that tonight, and I'll probably binge all
Oh
of the
yeah.
first part of it tonight, and then we'll see how it ends.
Were you excited like when they first announced that that was coming out? Because I think it started on YouTube.
It started on YouTube Red. Yeah, I was not excited. No.
Yeah. I was kind of
I
excited because I was excited about Johnny having a role in
I
that. I was
didn't.
like, I always liked Johnny.
When you heard about it, did you see a trailer or how did you hear about
No,
it?
no, I think all I did was read something online
Oh, okay.
that they were considering working
Yeah.
on. I was like, oh, I hope they do that. That
They I didn't hear about it until I got an audition. And it was, I auditioned for multiple roles in season one, and I didn't know anything, and there was no storyline. It didn't say anything that it was gonna be about Johnny or anything. It did, but it did, and I don't even think it said anything about Karate Kid, but it was called Cobra Kai. So what else could it be about, right? So, but when I was looking, I was like, really? My first thought was like, this isn't
why?
gonna work. Yeah. I did not think it was gonna work at all. But I didn't know who was attached to it and who were the creators of the show. Maybe it did say it in my audition, but maybe I missed it. But um, the guys who made, the guys behind Harold and Kumar, the guys behind Hot Tub Time Machine, and like, they made some really funny things. But to take on a franchise like the Karate Kid and turn it into a series, even still, that's a pretty big undertaking. I will say that those guys also, like I said about the people on Will Trent, uh, those guys also set a great tone on their set. Beyond anything else, you could tell that they're big nerds, right? They're big fans of
Well, you
the
can
karate.
tell that just by the guest stars they keep
Oh,
bringing.
yeah, exactly. So they have a lot of fun on their sets, and they have this energy that just goes and passes along to everybody. So it's a really fun time working on that as well. And later on in the season, I forget, like maybe he started last season, but definitely now in season 6. Um, Billy Williams Akba, Johnny Lawrence has been directing some episodes.
Oh, yeah.
So he's been like taking some control over a few of these episodes of Cobra Kai as well, and taking control of his story and stuff like that. So that's been really fun to see.
Hot Tub Time Machine was the first time I had seen him in something in years.
Oh,
And
since
I'm sure he'd been
yeah,
acting, but he had a little appearance in that. And I was like,
right,
oh, yeah, there
right,
it goes. I was like, I love him.
yeah.
And then, a little bit later, Cobra Kai.
Yeah. I think it's always really cool to see these actors have these, career resurrections after not seeing them for so long, and then, probably doing bit roles in random stuff that we haven't heard of, but then to be a part of another hit project. Kind of like, Kiwi Kwan and Michelle Yeoh when Everything Everywhere All at Once became such a huge hit. Um
Yeah.
really resurrected definitely Kiwi Kwan's career, but Michelle Yeoh is blowing up now. She's in
Oh, yeah.
everything now.
Everything.
So yeah,
Well,
so
we kind of
it's
saw that. It's been years ago, but we saw that with John Travolta when
yeah.
he had that big gap where he
Uh-huh.
wasn't doing a whole lot, and
Uh,
then all of a sudden he's big again.
yeah. Yeah. Awesome to see whenever that happens.
Did I read somewhere that you considered just going into the poker world?
Oh yeah, a lifetime ago, and that was another one of those things, right? That I was trying to find after work to do,
Yep.
and I played a lot of poker. I got into playing a bunch of online poker, and I got pretty good at it. I mean, I was reading a lot of poker books, learning about it. I think what inspired me was that I learned that a lot of these professional poker players, a bunch of them came from a math and science background, and people that were computer scientists and things like that, that thought very analytical, and they
What
were able
makes
to play.
sense?
Yeah, they were able to, think about the odds and all of that and play poker strategically rather than, emotionally. And I was like, all right, I could probably do that. And I think I got pretty good at it. But then where when I dropped out because I just couldn't handle the emotional part. I could think strategically, but then, it still is a game of chance to some degree, no matter how,
Right.
strategically you play. And then you could do all the right things and then still lose. And so there's similar to the stock market, you're going to have these ups and downs. If you still do everything right, it should theoretically, you should continue to
Eventually,
do well. But there are going to be peaks and valleys, and I couldn't handle the peaks and valleys. I mean, and I was in my 20s, so I was probably like just very
but not we in our 20s, none of us can handle the valleys.
yeah, right. Yeah, just very impatient about all those things because there's a lot of peaks and valleys in an acting career too. But luckily, I'm older now, and maybe that's why. Because that's the thing. I mean, you mentioned earlier, maybe the right thing to do is to have a corporate career before getting into acting. I don't know if I would have been able to stick with it had I started in my teenage years or in my 20s or whatever, because I probably would have been too impatient. I probably would not have been able to handle, all the rejection that we have to deal with. I in 2021, just a few years ago, I had a stretch of 80 plus auditions with no bookings.
Holy cow.
And that was the most in my
Could
career.
be a
And
little
I've
discouraging.
Yeah, and I've talked about that with other, successful working actor friends of mine. who are about my age, and they say that, oh, I've had stretches of over 100, and I can't imagine if that was the start, if that
Right.
stretch came at the beginning of my career, I would have quit way
Well,
before
yeah,
80.
you'd have just assumed, well, I'm no good.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So that was another fortunate part of my career, was that I booked earlier on, and it helped gave me some confidence. But yeah, to have a long stretch like that, I think Mark Ruffalo said that he had 300 before he booked something. I'm like, I can't imagine, I can't believe you stuck with it to audition
That's
300 times.
that's
And
a lot. I mean, because
yeah.
you guys, I mean, how many could you do in a week? I mean, how long did that take?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I did the 80, it was like maybe 2 or 3 a week. So for him, if it was
Several
two or
months, you'd think.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for 300, it would take a few years to get there. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, Kurt, thank you for taking a little bit of time. I love your work, and I love the fact that you just keep popping up on more stuff, which usually indicates that at some point somebody's going to give you a really meaty role. So I'm looking forward to that. I know that's coming.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Let's see. We'll see. Maybe it's going to be Will Trent. Maybe they'll write me a bigger role. Who knows? There was a joke. I'm not in the writer's room, so I have no idea what they have planned for the future. But one of the characters makes a joke about my character Pete and says, "You're never going to be a detective this way, Pete." And I was like, "Really? Was Pete? Is Pete aiming to be a detective? I
Yeah,
did not know that. If that happens,
that
that'll
could
be
be a
cool."
spinoff.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Uh, I could have my own little dog that's on my own show. Um, but yeah, thank you, Michael. You're very kind to say that, and I'm like I said earlier, I'm pinching myself still. I'm amazed at how far this has come after being a software developer for 10 years. But let's see where it goes. I mean, I'm interested just as much as you are to see how far this can go.
Well, yeah, yeah, and it doesn't hurt when you love what you're doing. That's kind of
Yeah,
nice. Yeah.
yeah. It's definitely a lot more fun than sitting in the cubicle.
I've
Yeah.
done my fair share of cubicle sitting in my
Yeah.
life. I was a call center runner
Yeah.
direct, for 20 years. So I know all
Okay.
kinds of cubicles. At
Yeah.
I assumed the podcast would just be like a hobby, and then it turned into something. I was like, thank God.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah.
So, Kurt, before I let you go, anything else that you're working on that we can keep an eye out for?
Um, Tune into Cobra Kai. It's out today. And the next installment I think is November, and then in 2025 they're really stretching it out, but they're hopefully keeping the interest until the finale, the grand finale. And then, like I said, Will Trent is starting to film this summer, and I think we'll probably premiere season 3 will probably premiere in the fall. I'm assuming. And then I got to work on this a horror movie last year that I can't really reveal too much about, but it was a totally different thing that I'd really done, compared to the past things that I've worked on. I had a lot of fun working on that movie.
Were you
And
the killer?
I can't give away any. uh,
Or were you
I,
the victim?
I will say I was one or the other. Usually in the horror movie, you're one or the other. Right?
Is that due out this year?
I hope so. It was due out last year, but because of the strike, we were not able to get it
A lot of
finished.
stuff last year.
Yeah, and so we finished it earlier this year, and I think there's still in I'm not in contact with post-production, so I don't know, but I think they're still trying to figure out, talking to the distributors and finding the right time slot. Being a horror movie, it would make sense if it were October, but we'll
Yeah.
see if that ends up
Halloween
happening.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Where can we find you, and where can we find your YouTube channel on social media?
So my YouTube channel is Acting Career Center. If you look up Acting Career Center, Google it or YouTube it, or just search my name. I'm pretty lucky also that I'm the only Kurt Yu out there.
That's pretty lucky,
Yeah,
especially as an actor.
yeah, it's helpful. It's helpful for sure. I have a friend. It's nice to have like an email address that's just your name that doesn't have to be followed by a
And have
bunch
a
of numbers.
number.
Yeah. I have a friend who has an email that's just her first name. Like she's got a unique enough first name that she's got her
That's
first
amazing.
name at gmail.com. I'm like, that is incredible.
That's the dream.
Yeah, yeah. If I could travel back in time, that would be the thing that I do.
Well, when all this started, a couple
Yeah,
decades ago when the
yeah,
internet hit and stuff, none of us knew,
yeah.
or we
Nobody.
probably all would have made better choices.
Yeah, right.
Kurt, thank you so
Uh,
much. Please come back anytime. Talk to
would
us.
love to. Yeah, it was a great time chatting with you, Mike. And best of luck with you, or to you, and best of luck with your podcast.
Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, hold on one second. Actor Kurt, hope you enjoyed that one. Kurt was terrific. I was pretty sure that he had at some point spent time in Cleveland, so I'm glad we got to talk about that. We hit on a lot of the stuff he's done. He's been in a lot, so let me run through some that we didn't get through. Jerry and Marge Go Large. He was Kellogg's boss in that. He was in Holiday. I loved him in that because he was like a cheesy DJ. Enjoyed that one. He was a doctor in the movie Tag. Played a sushi chef, I believe, in Bad Moms Christmas. He did a little stint on General Hospital. He was on the werewolf show on Paramount, Wolfpack. He had an appearance on Young Rock. He was on Ozark, Sweet Magnolias. Let's see, Dope Sick. I can't believe I didn't bring that one up. That was terrific. Dynasty, Insatiable. We played Herman for several episodes. The Haunting of Hill House. We talked about Preacher. He brought up MacGyver. The Resident, The Gifted, we spoke about, and Vampire Diaries, which makes sense. Vampire Diaries films in Atlanta. We've had a few from that cast have been on the show, so I knew that one. But just a terrific actor and talented. So it's nice seeing his roles increase in importance, and I think we'll continue to see that to the point that at some point he'll be one of the main cast or the star of something. So I'm looking forward to that. I think he's a talented actor, and I love the background. He had his career and kind of was looking more for a hobby, and it turned into a new career. So I love that story. Pretty great. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in with us. If you're finding us for the first time, so happy that you're here. Love to have your support. Easy to do. It's free. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Please subscribe if you go there. Doesn't cost you anything. Really helps us out. Our website is meistercon.com. You can find currently 812 episodes, audio and video versions of those. We tend to put out about 4 episodes a week, so that number is constantly increasing. I would put our guest list up against any other show, talk show, podcast, anything. We've been so blessed with the guests we've had on the show. So definitely check us out on the website, meistercon.com. Thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody.